All right.
All right, guys. Anytime I get to interview an ECU football player, it's always a great honor for me, and especially, no offense to any other ECU football team that's come along, but the '91 team, the team that won the Peach Bowl against NC State, everybody remembers that. Even you NC State fans out there, and I know you try to forget, but you do remember. I know you do. 37-34. This guy was the nose guard on that team, one of the defensive leaders on that team from Farmington Hills, Michigan. He went to ECU. Was it 91 and 92 was the years you were there?
Yes, sir. 91, 92.
Yeah, that's that. This is Zaim Cunmulaj, starting nose guard for the ECU Pirates. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, Steve. It's an honor to be on the show.
Well, I appreciate it. We were talking before, and it's kind of an honor to hear that some of these ECU football players are listening to the show. You were telling me you were letting some of them hear some of Deion Johnson's interview that I did with him. That's quite, that makes me feel a little bit better about what I'm doing here.
Yeah, they really did. Deion Johnson's interview, Luke's, Greg Grandison, I sent out the link to it, and they all enjoyed it, and they all listened to it, and they're all happy to be back on the radio talking to you and talking about the old days. A lot of fun we had back in 91, 92.
Oh, yeah. So let's get started here. Okay, you're from Michigan. When you were in high school, was football the only sport you played? Were there other sports that you played?
Actually, I was a better wrestler than I was a football player. I was All-State in football, and I was 3-time All-State in wrestling and a state champion in districts, but I was actually being recruited by Michigan to go wrestle there, and my grade point average wasn't the greatest. My mom and dad escaped from Albania back in 1966, and this is kind of a little bit off this subject,
go ahead.
So my brother was born in a refugee camp in Italy. They swam across the river in Albania, and they moved here, came with nothing on their back. Somebody sponsored them, and my dad got going. So school wasn't my dad's first priority. It was work. Right. So I honestly didn't think I was going to go to college, and then all of a sudden these college coaches kept coming up, and I'm like, well, my grades in my freshman, sophomore year weren't that good. And then I realized I'm going to get all these scholarship offers, and they're like, well, you're going to have to go to a junior college and see what you can do from there. So I ended up attending a junior college in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is about 2 hours from Farmington Hills, where I went to school, and got my grades up and wrestled one season there, placed at nationals, and made first-team All-American in East Carolina. The way I got there was Coach Huxtable. I'm sure you probably remember him.
Yes, sir.
He's now at NC State, the defensive coordinator. We had a bowl game. Yeah, exactly. He's a traitor, but still love him to death. He came to our bowl game. It was in Illinois. He was from Illinois originally, and he was home for Thanksgiving. It was on Thanksgiving Day, and he happened to come out to the game because they don't recruit the Midwest at all.
Right.
And he knew one of the coaches and said, "Where's that guy going to play?" And my top schools were at that time like Arkansas, Washington State, and I had never heard of East Carolina. And he walked me and said, "Here's my card. I'm going to give you a call," and so on and so forth. And I'm like, "Oh, take a look, whatever." So when I went to East Carolina and flew to Greenville, took my visit to the other schools, got to Greenville, and I'm like, I'm done. This is where I'm going. This is it. I loved it. It was like being home. I'm dead serious. I mean, the only bad experience I had was flying into Greenville we took a commuter flight. I think we flew into Raleigh, then this commuter flight from Raleigh to Greenville, and oh my God, was it awful. But otherwise, it was just my home away from home. Loved it.
Well, yeah, you pretty much answered my next question. What made ECU your choice? And you answered another question, too. What were your first thoughts of Greenville? But, you said Greenville was like a home away from home. And you talked about these other schools. So Arkansas and Washington State, were they the only schools in the mix besides ECU that were trying to get you to come play there?
Oh, no. There was a bunch of the MAC schools that were interested. I only took took 4 visits. I went to Washington State, Arkansas, East Carolina, and Western Michigan. After East Carolina, I just stopped, and I said, this is where I'm going to school. a bunch of mass schools: Central, Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan,
right.
Toledo, Bowling Green. All those schools are interested in me. Cincinnati, but you know, the biggest thing that was literally going to East Carolina. The players, the coaches. When I got there, it just seemed like home.
Right.
I am from Farmington Hills, Michigan, which is in the suburbs of Detroit. It's in the outskirts of Detroit. So I don't want to say it's a small name. It's a lot bigger now, but it reminded me of home. The way people treated me in North Carolina or Greenville, North Carolina was just awesome. I mean, it was open arms is the way they welcomed me, which I was so happy about.
Okay. You talked about the coaches treat you so good. What thoughts about playing for Bill Lewis? How was it playing for Coach Lewis?
I tell you what, Bill Lewis will shape you and get you ready for life. He was one of the most strict coaches I had, but like I said, he'd get you ready for life. You weren't allowed to have long hair. You weren't allowed to have a goatee. No facial hair except for a mustache if you wanted one. Everywhere we went, we were literally organized to the T. You had to be on time. If you were late, I can't remember who it was. We were at Syracuse, playing Syracuse, and somebody was late to our night before meeting. I want to say like a minute late, and they had to sit first half. I don't know if he was a starter or not. I can't remember exactly who it was. And even if I did, I probably wouldn't tell you. But so he sat him the whole first half, making a point. So and like now to this day, I still go by that. I'm always 15 to 20 minutes, even 30 minutes early. And Coach Lewis was just phenomenal. I mean, when he left, obviously Coach Logan was a phenomenal coach too, but it was a different kind of coaching.
Right.
Bill Lewis is more business, get it done. Coach Logan was more family-oriented. Not that Coach Lewis wasn't, but it was different. He was just really strict and phenomenal. You know.
Right. So that your first year there, first game is against Illinois. That's the comeback game where you guys pretty much. And I've talked to Greg Granderson and them about this. And you pretty much got ripped off at the end. That comeback game that the only game you lost that year, 38-31. Did that after that game, even though you lost, did you guys look at that like, okay, we can play with anybody? We went into their place and should have beat them. Does that give y'all kind of an extra boost for the rest of the year?
Absolutely. Between that game, when we lost that game, obviously, I'm sure most of the people know we lost on the referees calling excessive celebration. Right. And it was the Miami rule that came in. And coming back like that, I was just shocked that we came back and I think we were down 17 points and made it 38-31 and got the onside kick. And we it's easy to say we should have won or could have won, but we really should have. If we'd have played them later on in the year, we would have won. But it did give us confidence to go on to the next level. For example, I think a couple of the other guys that spoke talked about the Memphis State game. Memphis State had just upset USC the week before we played them.
Yeah.
And so then when we beat Memphis State, it was like we kind of got the ball rolling. And before I got there, East Carolina had lost to, I want to say, Miami. I mean, that was one of their selling points to me. I don't want to say selling point, but what they told me on the resume was, we lost to University of Miami like 21-16, Georgia 18-15 or whatever it was.
Right.
Although they were all within like a touchdown or a score or whatever, they were very close to being, from 5-6 to 8-3 and having a very good team. And back then, being independent and not having a conference we were in, we played some really tough teams, as you well know.
Oh yeah.
So that got the ball rolling for us, and it just kept going and going. Coach Lewis preached. We had the big team, little me shirts it was all about the team, and I believe that was our team for that year. I mean, it was just awesome.
Yeah, I think just looking over the schedule, you get to win over South Carolina. You guys got on a roll after that. Of course, you reeled off 11 in a row after that. But one of the games, I mean, the Syracuse game at the Carrier Dome, when Syracuse ranked 15th at the time, that kind of put y'all on the radar then, I think. You come back, you win 23-20. I think Marlon Graves was the quarterback then. You guys keep him in check, and you end up. And I know Greg and them talked a lot about when you came back to the airport tonight after that Syracuse game, when you flew back in, and people were lined up out there waiting for you guys. What was your reaction to that? Did you kind of think, okay, we got something special going here?
It was actually like not even believable. So, because me playing at a junior college, it was almost playing like at a high school level. There was actually less people at our junior college games than there was at a high school game. So coming back from Syracuse, when they told us that there were, people waiting for us at the airport, you're thinking a couple hundred people. When we get there, I'm like, oh my God! I'm like, this is unbelievable. I mean, they gave us videos as when we left, or as we finished that season, highlight videos.
Right.
And I go back and look at that video once in a while and go, holy cow! It's just amazing how dedicated our fans were to our university and our football team. It was actually like a dream come true. To be honest with you, it was. Playing Syracuse and beating them, knowing, like you said, they had Marvin Graves, they had Cadre Ishmael.
Yeah.
Robbie Ishmael's brother played at Notre Dame, and Cadre was their missile. One was called the Rocket, one was called the Missile. And beating them there at Syracuse, I think they didn't know what hit them. They were just kind of like in awe.
Yeah. And
we were ready for them, and coming back, like you said, it was just like, here we go. We're just going to keep rolling and rolling and rolling, and we just kept moving up the ladder on the rankings.
Yeah, that game, winning that game moves y'all get in the top 25. You'll rank 20. And then the next week a tough, and this is probably, except for the state game, for the Peach Bowl game, of course, this is probably one of those the games that really stick out with me because the Pitt game, Pitt's ranked 23rd, you're ranked 20th. You come from behind it. Probably the loudest I've ever heard Ficklin was when you score to make it 23-22, and then Jeff Blake gets a 2-point conversion and wins the game. I'll honestly say I've never heard it as loud as I heard it that day when he scored.
Honestly, the stadium was shaking, and if you watched it, hopefully that you've seen the highlight video. I think it is on YouTube, but you could see the video camera shaking. Like that's how loud it was. And you remember the goalpost came down, and it was. Like the loudest I've been, like you said, we played at the Carrier Dome, and we played at South Carolina my senior year. But it was, I think there were 60,000 or 70,000 people, but it didn't even compare to that. Like I think we had 35. We had a pack, and with 35 or 6,000 people, and it was something that you could never forget. I mean, you calling me in and talking about this just puts a big smile on my face. It's just a blast, and I can't wait to tell all the guys about it. Greg Gardell, and he was a big leader of that team.
I did see that's one guy I'd love to talk to right there. I did, and I hate to interrupt you, but you talk about when you think about this Peach Bowl team, a lot of people talk about the offense with Blake, with Dion, with Luke, but that defense, Robert Jones, yourself, Gardell, Greg Grandison, Jerry Dillon. Oh gosh, I mean, you guys had some big talent on that defensive side of the ball. I think that goes overlooked a lot.
Yeah, they what it seemed like is we played so well together as a team. I mean, there was, like you said, Robert Jones. Obviously, he was the standout.
Right.
But it trickled down. He never acted like he was better than anybody else. He just, rooted us on and cheered us on. Like, all right, let's pick it up. Let's go on to the next play. Greg Gardell, same way. Jerry Dillon, he's all upbeat all the time. Those guys, Greg Grandison,
Chris Hall,
from top to bottom. Chris Hall. I mean, you keep going. Mark Washington.
Yeah,
there's another one. I mean, you just keep going and going and going. Ken Burnett. There's another guy that was kind of flew under the radar. He'd be in on every tackle. Stephen Brady. We had a lot of depth for not a lot of size, but a lot of depth.
Right.
In a lot of positions that year. But it was, like you said, there were some good players on that defense. Me being probably one of the lower guys. Greg Gardell was a phenomenal player. He probably didn't get recognition as much as he probably should have, but he was very, very good. On the defensive line is what I mean, not just across the defensive line.
Right.
But, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys, you go in, beat Tulane, Southern Miss, which was is a big rivalry back then for ECU. You get the 48-20 win over then. You guys are just moving up in the rankings. Move up to number 13, the last game against Cincinnati, and you get the win 30-19. The Virginia Tech win, and I know Greg Granson loved that when we talked about that. He said that was one of his best games. He gets the interception that pretty much clinches the game for him and takes it back for a touchdown. But you get to the end of the year, you're 10-1. And I'll tell you, and I told the other guys the same thing. What I worried about, and I go back to the '83 team when they had Terry Long and Ernest Bowner. They went 8-3. Mm-hmm. They were within 10 points of being undefeated, and they lost to the three Florida schools. Florida State by 1. I think they lost to Miami by maybe 6 or 7, and then Florida by like 3 or 4.
I think it was 21-16 or something. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And did not make a bowl game. I'll tell you what I worried about after that. As good as y'all were, I was like, these guys, it just bothers me. It just worries me that they're not going to get the respect they deserve. Did you guys feel like, okay, we better not get overlooked here. We're one of the best teams in the nation. We better not get overlooked here.
100%. That was our biggest fear, too. Like you said, they were 8-3 a couple of years before. And I remember being there. And like I said, I didn't know about East Carolina until they came up to me, because back then there was only ESPN. There wasn't ESPN 1, 2, 3, plus you couldn't stream all the games. So it was like, if you got to play on ESPN, it was a huge thing. So we were all like, who are we going to play? Hopefully we make it to a big bowl game. What bowl game we're going to play? And then when they announced it was going to be North Carolina State, it was like, oh God, here we go. It's kind of like the Michigan State rival here. I mean, it's that game is never not watching. You're either on one side or the other. The great divide, as they call it in Michigan. But I remember thinking the same thing, being from out of state, going, I remember everybody being so worried, just like as you said, going on. I wasn't as worried because I didn't realize, we beat all those teams, so I'm thinking to myself, we're getting in for sure.
Right.
I mean, we're going to play somebody good. And then guys kept talking like they've always given us the runaround. And,
yep.
But, like, that was the big worry. Yeah, for sure.
But did you know much about the history of the NC State ECU rivalry before all this came up?
Not very much. I just heard, here and there little things that they didn't want to play us. It was always a tough game for them, and they explained it to me. Obviously, they're a team that they stood better than us.
Yeah.
We're supposedly their little sister. They're our big brother. They get the recruits that, the better recruits supposedly. But it was one of those things that, supposedly. So we took that as let's go, let's do this. Like we wanted them bad. I just remember all of our guys being excited, me being excited. It's something that you can't even draw it up if you wanted to. You couldn't really make the story up. You just have to watch it, and it's unreal.
Yeah, it was. When I heard when they made the announcement that, first of all, you get to play on a New Year's Day game. I was like, well, that's giving them respect. They deserve to be playing on a New Year's Day game, because back then, before you had a bowl game just about every day from the middle of December till the second week of January, you have just about a game, if not every day, every week you have a bowl game. It used to be just January 1st was the game. If you played on January 1st, that meant you've done something right. And then to hear it with NC State, I was like, holy crap, here we go. Just like you said, holy crap, here we go. I remember I didn't get to go to the game, but my cousin was actually, back in the mid-'80s, he was a manager for the team, and I got to go up there with him a lot and see some of the players and stuff. But go to his house and watch the game, and then you got NC State fans calling in, ringing the phone every time they scored. But what was the atmosphere like before that game? I know myself, and it's just me. Before any game I played, if I didn't have a little bit of nerves, I knew I wasn't going to play well. Did you have any nerves about that game?
Yeah, we did. In the back of your mind, you still, you think, we're playing on a New Year's bowl game, really? I mean, January 1st, like you said, people nowadays don't look at it as a big deal. I guess they still do now. But back then it was like, what was there, 4 or 5 bowl games?
Yeah, there wasn't many on January 1st.
At home. Yeah. Yeah, I think there was one, was the Rose Bowl on January 2nd, maybe. But anyway, oh God, were we ever nervous? We were tense. But we had during the week leading up to the game, we had all these events planned with North Carolina State.
Right.
And it seemed like we dominated them in all these events. And it just kind of felt like it was going to carry over in the game. When they walked around us, they just seemed very arrogant. And I shouldn't say that about all of them. Yeah, maybe I should. It's NC State. Yeah, I can say that. It's okay.
That's all right.
Yeah, but we were nervous for sure. I know I was. I can't speak for all of us, but I know we were. And then when we got down, it was, we got into, Coach got over to us and said, hey, we can do this. We've done it before. We can do this. Coach Cadet, our defensive line coach, phenomenal coach, walked over to us and said, if we want to win this game, you guys have to step up the defense, have to step up and make some plays to get the ball back to the offense. And it seems like we made the right plays at the right time. Our defense did.
Definitely. And I don't know how many times, I'm sure you've watched it a few times. I know I have. But watching ESPN's coverage before, you talk about that arrogance. And, the little vignette they did before the game talking to the ECU and the state players, the state players they talked to, 90% of it was arrogance, talking about how y'all were their little brothers, like you said, and stuff like that. I was just like, really, guys? We're going to go there with this, and as much as I wanted y'all to win, that made me want it even more then to listen to that. I was like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me, guys! But
yeah,
and one of the things they kept talking about on ESPN was the size of their offensive line compared to you guys on the defensive line. They kept harping on that, but I think you guys pretty much, handled yourself, like you said, made some plays to get the ball back with that game. You kind of made them stop talking about the size difference after a while.
They did quit talking about it. The one thing I remember, going back and watching the game, yes, and I have watched it a few times. It does come on ESPN Classic.
Yeah, it does.
Seems like once a year, and when it does happen, it goes through all of us. It goes through text message or some kind of message through social media. By the way, Peach Bowl's on, ESPN Classic. But the one thing that sticks out in my mind that they don't show on ESPN Classic is the lead Corso saying, who is East Carolina? After this game, he had the saber sword, and they were stabbing him with the saber. Do you remember that going on?
Yes. I will tell you this. Yeah. I recorded the Peach Bowl, the pregame, and all on a VHS tape back in '91, and I actually had it transferred over to DVD. So I've got that whole little thing too. Yeah, I remember very well. And after the game, he had to eat some crow.
Say that. Yeah, it's funny that you say it, because I said this openly after I listened to Deion's conversation with you and with Luke Fisher and Greg. I went back to listen to them all. So I said to Zilp, I wish I can't find my VCR, my VHS tapes. I said, I've got a DVD recorder. And Zilp's like, wait, I got them all. So he sent them all to me after I talked to him. It was probably a week ago. And I recorded them all onto DVDs. I'm going to send them to him all onto DVDs. And I got to watch all that pregame going into the Peach Bowl where Brian Bailey, I don't know if you remember, they shaved his mustache.
Yeah.
Tom Scott and them guys shaved his mustache. He said if we made it to a New Year's Day Bowl game, so they shaved it right on TV with Brian Bailey. But it was
I remember.
It was a lot of fun. But yeah.
Yeah, so, you remember, I mean, I sit there, and my daughter, she's 15 now. She's kind of getting away from Daddy a little bit. But we used to she would sit here and watch. Every once in a while, I'd flip it on and watch the whole game. And she'd sit here right with me, and I was like, you just don't understand. This is one of those games that I talk about when you say it's just meant to happen, what happened that day. Because you guys, you hung right with them the first half. I actually were leading at halftime. And then
17-14.
Yeah, 17-14. And then it just looked like everything was going downhill. You're down 34-17 in the fourth. And, the whole, and I guess the whole season came down to, they always talked about we believe. And you still hear those Pirates fans loud, and they didn't give up. and you guys, and people talk about, yeah, and no doubt Jeff Blake was explosive. That offense was explosive. But you guys had to make some stops in that fourth quarter. You guys came up big, too.
Yeah, it was. Like you said, we were down 34-17. If you go back and you watch the whole game, they put it on ESPN Classic. They cut a lot of it out.
Yeah, they do.
They actually were talking about a pigeon.
I remember the pigeon.
They kind of wrote us off. Do you remember?
I do. The pigeon, they kept talking about that pigeon hadn't moved.
Yeah, and they were basically writing us off. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, here comes East Carolina. They're coming back. And it was just the comeback just basically called back. They called it the rally. I mean, the comeback, the rally, whatever you want to call it. It was just, still to this day, it's hard to believe. You know, the teams that we played to get there, like you said, Virginia Tech, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, all those teams still are doing well. I think East Carolina, hopefully, and I'm changing it a little bit, is going to go back on that path.
Right. I was going to ask you about that.
You know, well, University of Illinois, I look back at it. It was probably years ago. I looked back at, who University of Illinois lost to that year. They lost to Michigan, Ohio State. They had 4 losses. They were 7-4. They went to a bowl game. I can't remember what bowl, but they barely lost to Michigan. Anyways, they lost to Michigan, lost to Ohio State. Ohio State lost to Syracuse in the Holiday Bowl.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying we were better than Ohio State, but we did beat Syracuse.
We did beat Syracuse, yeah.
Where does that put us?
Exactly.
Yeah, so, they got beat pretty good. I think it was 28-14. And because I remember looking at it going, wow, there's Ohio State. And where I live here in Michigan, the Midwest, that's what it is. Michigan, and Ohio State. That's what I talk about. And us beating Syracuse, them beating Ohio State. But it was something else. I mean, the fans, like you said there, we had the most faithful fans you could ever find in the country. And they still, to this day, the purple and gold fans, they come no matter what.
Yeah,
no matter what our record is, no matter what the score is, they stick around.
It's gotten kind of bad the last couple of years because I have some guys I coach that go to ECU and they, and like you said, ECU fans always come out, no matter what the team's doing, ECU fans always come out and support the team. And with the situation the last couple of years, it got kind of bad, but hopefully they're back on the right track. We'll talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on that coming in a little bit. Let me ask you this. What's the defense doing on the sideline on that last drive before the famous Luke Fisher touchdown pass from Jeff Blake? Are y'all not able to watch? I know because some of the times I wasn't able to watch. I just had to turn my head and so what's the defense doing over? What were you doing over there? Were you watching everything go on, or were you kind of just?
Oh yeah, I was watching, knowing that we're going to have to go out there, knowing that we're East Carolina, we're going to score. Jeff Blake was not going to be denied between Clayton Driver, Hunter Gallimore, Deion Johnson. We're going to score. Luke Fisher. We're going to score. So we know we got to go back out there and shut them down. So honestly, truly, I watched every play. And that's what our thoughts were. Like, okay, get ready to go back out, strap it up, shut them down, and let's take this thing home. That's where our thoughts were on the sideline.
What about now? You get down to the end. Could y'all believe did y'all believe they were going to try that field goal at the end to tie it? I mean, I thought that was kind of a Bush League move, but I guess they wanted to come out with some kind of face, not lose and tie. But it was definitely a makeable field goal because I was going, okay, hold on here, dude, this game ain't over yet.
Yeah, it was. Well, I don't know if you remember this. So my claim to fame in that game was a sack I had right before the field goal. There was somewhere around 30 seconds left, and our coach had called like a little stunt up in front where we were running a twist between me and Greg Gardill, and I shook loose. They let me go. They double-teamed on Greg. I came around the edge, and it was a loss of 15, 16, 17 yards, so put them out of field goal range.
Yeah.
The next play, they threw it back in, another 18 yards, and got back in within a 48-yard field goal. I think it was 48.
Right. It was, yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, I can't believe they're really going to try a field goal and tie this. And as you know, and most people know, as you know, back then, a tie, game's over.
You don't play overtime back then, no.
No overtime back then. So I'm like, they're really going to go for a tie here? I'm like, wow, that's kind of chicken bleep. I'll let you tell the rest of the words there. Let the crowd throw it in. But, they, as well as, Robert Jones and Jerry Dillon, they could jump, and they blocked an extra point earlier in the game, which was huge.
Oh, yeah.
I think they blocked the field goal, so maybe an extra point and a field goal. I can't remember.
I can't remember if they could. I know they blocked something, but I can't remember if it was the extra point or a field goal.
Yeah. But it ended up, I remember them talking about it, saying what a big, huge block that was. It's coming down to it. And I actually truly thought we were going to block the field goal, to be honest with you. Because back then, a 48-yard field goal, I know it's, nowadays 48, still pretty good, but it seems like the kickers have gotten better as the time has come on.
Yeah, they have.
But I actually thought we were going to block it. And as the inside nose guard, myself, Greg Gargill, Derek Taylor, we're supposed to get the biggest push we can, so those guys, when they take off and jump, Robert Jones and Jerry Dillon, jump right over our back and block, And I remember seeing them jump, and I was just looking over, and I seen the ball go over my left shoulder, and I'm looking, and I just seen the referee just waving his hands, and just everybody going nuts. It was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's honestly something.
Some good memories, Steve.
Yeah, that's honestly something I'll never forget. Is because I had my head, I was pacing like a dad getting ready for his wife going to labor. I was pacing back and forth.
Yeah.
And to see it go wide, I was like, oh, thank the Lord. And then there was a little junk talking to the NC State fans after that, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, for sure. After that was kind of a blur. After that. Everybody was kind of coming up, grabbing my gloves, grabbing stuff off me. I'm like, give me my helmet back. People were, they were wanting to keep memorabilia. I'm like, no. I'm gonna have to take this. You take it. No, you can have my gloves. You can have my wristbands. You can't have my helmet. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, how long did it take to really set in at what y'all had just accomplished? I mean, that whole season. I know that had to be a surreal feeling after winning a game like that.
It was crazy because, the game was over, we went inside, we celebrated for a little bit, and what I remember was I got back on a plane and flew right back to Michigan that night. It was kind of crazy because everybody you go back to your hometown, and, if it was a driving distance, you drive, and I got back to Michigan, Detroit Metro Airport, and there's my family with about 100 people waiting for me at the airport. They had a big party of, watching the Peach Bowl game, and they were thinking the same thing, like, oh my God, are they going to be able to come back? And I just remember coming back and watching the replays and watching Lee Corso having to eat the saber sword there.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him and tell him. Do you remember that? I'd love to just tell him. Ever since then, I've really not liked Lee Corso.
Yeah, he kind of rubs you the wrong way sometimes. But that's one that's always set out with me as far as Lee Corso goes. But you come back the next year. Of course, what was the feeling like when you heard Coach Lewis was leaving?
I remember everybody being down because we kind of, before the bowl game before we even played the bowl game, the Peach Bowl, rumors were starting to float around that he was going to be leaving. And, people went up to him and asked, no, I'm not leaving. He couldn't stay.
Yeah.
He didn't want to bring us down. He didn't want to, change any of the atmosphere. But it was kind of a letdown. But in his defense, Georgia Tech had a big program back then, and they were a top-ranked school. Not that we weren't, but he knew that it was tough, us being an independent school, not being in the conference, to keep recruiting against NC State and Virginia Tech and South Carolina, all the teams down the East Coast, that it was going to be tough. So he pretty much took everybody on the staff except for Steve Logan and maybe one other coach, but all the major coaches were gone. And Steve, being a first-year coach, did a phenomenal job, too, don't get me wrong. But it was a different atmosphere between them two. He was way more laid-back, Coach Logan was. Coach Lewis was way more strict.
Yeah, I've heard some of the guys that I've interviewed, like Greg, has said that it was a different atmosphere than what it was the year before. You mentioned Quadri Ishmael, and I have to talk about that. I was at the everybody's pumped up for that first home game. We're playing Syracuse, and I just remember that first play from scrimmage, and Quadri Ishmael, you talk about the miss one, he launched himself, went, yeah. I was like, gosh, no. But it just,
oh, God.
You lost so much on the offensive side of the ball. You lost some key guys on defense too, but it was just hard to, it felt like we'd get on a streak, we'd start playing good, and then something would bring us down. And I know one game that when I mentioned it to Greg Grandison, he's like, man, I don't know what the heck we were. I'm not going to say what he really said. I don't know what the heck we were doing in that day. The Bowling Green game. He said,
oh, my God.
He said, if you talk to anybody that played on that defense, you mentioned that Bowling Green game from 92, and I don't even know, he said, I don't know what we were doing that day.
I actually, like I said to you, Zophie, they sent me those tapes, so I recorded them, and I had to, you can't fast forward, dude. I just want to stick it in. I started watching that game, and I was watching it, and I'm going, what in the world? Especially as a coach now, I'm looking at it going, what was I doing? What were we doing? Holy cow. It was like we were in another whole other world. We played horrendous. I think we overlooked Bowling Green, honestly.
Right.
We just, and this may sound bad, we just thought we were better than them. And they came out, their quarterback, I can't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure he went in the NFL and did well for a little while.
I'm trying to remember. Big tall
quarterback that did well. You kind of vaguely remember that, though?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. They had a good quarterback that year, but I can't remember who. Let me see if I can. While we're talking about, I'll see. So did you feel like that last year there was kind of a disappointment?
A very big disappointment. Like I said to you, I started transferring these VHS tapes on the DVDs for myself and Zophie, and I looked, and the one thing that really stood out was, and this may sound bad, Michael Anderson was the first year. My roommates were Sean McConnell, the quarterback. Him and Michael Anderson split a lot of time that year.
Right.
And Pete Zophie. It's kind of weird, defensive line with a quarterback and wide receiver. But anyway, Michael Anderson at one time had 22 touchdowns with 22 interceptions.
I remember.
And the guy said it was on ESPN, and he said he leads the nation in interceptions. Like, he's never seen, usually it should be like 3-1, or, if it was 20 touchdowns, it should be 8 interceptions, or, 20 to 10. But it was a very big disappointment.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was because we were, like you said, we lost Robert Jones, obviously Jeff Flake on the offense side, two big leaders in the team, and then Bill Lewis being the coach he was. It just seemed like a totally different atmosphere.
Yeah, it did. I mean, even in the stadium, sometimes it seemed different. But I mean, you have one of those years like you had in '91. It's especially, I don't know, that '91 year just felt like special, and it was special. But trying to get it a couple years in a row, especially with what you deal with recruiting, and I'm not saying you didn't have the talent there, but it was just something different about that team. I can remember Anderson against in that Syracuse game. I think he threw like 60 times that game. He was. I know he had.
Yeah, he threw a bunch. I think he had 4 interceptions. I know we had 4 turnovers before halftime.
Yeah,
and we were still only down like, I think we were down 14-7 or something. It was ridiculous.
It was close. It was close.
Yeah.
But so. Let's talk a little bit about what you think about. I mean, I know I'm sure you follow ECU football. What you think about the direction they're going now with Coach Houston there now?
I don't know much about Coach Houston. I've looked him up, and I've seen that everywhere he's gone, he's done well. He's got a winning tradition. He seems to turn programs back around where they're supposed to be. Another big thing I like about what's coming with Houston is Coach Shankweiler. Coach Shankweiler was our offensive line coach back in '91. He has come back to East Carolina, and I think that'll be a huge, huge improvement. The last few years watching East Carolina, seemed like our offensive line has been, I don't want to knock them, but they just haven't been able to protect the quarterback. It seems like East Carolina always produces a pretty good quarterback every year. And there hasn't been any protection the last couple of years watching. They're running for their life. And I think Steve Schenkweiler and Coach Houston may bring that back to East Carolina.
Yeah, I like you say,
think they'll turn the program around.
Coach Houston has been a winner everywhere he's went, and I know a lot of these. I follow the ECU Facebook message boards, the football message boards up there, and I know when they started talking about Coach Houston, it was, well, we might as well go back to Conference USA with this hire, and I don't really understand it, because if this guy is doing the job like he did at all these schools, what makes you think he can't do it at ECU? I mean, I honestly, I think they made an announcement that he had not signed, but he had come to an agreement with UNC Charlotte, like maybe a week before we started talking to him, and I was like, there goes the guy that I wanted there. I said, well, we screwed that up. We waited too long. And then when I said, I hear they haven't made an official decision yet, I was like, okay, maybe we got a chance here. And I was tickled to death when we got together. I think I'm already seeing, more people want to come back to ECU. There was a lot of people that were getting out of the Pirate Club, and there's more people coming back now. There's more excitement now about this. I think it's going to be a good year for ECU.
I really do too. I heard we got some good recruits in, and keeping in touch with our former players of those years I played there. A lot of guys have said good things. We're in a football text group, and I hear about everything pretty much in the sense of what players we got and how the coach is doing. A couple of guys looked at spring games, said we look good. It seems like we're on the right path. It sounds, everything I've heard is good news so far. So It sounds like our program is moving in the right direction. It'll be fun to see, and hopefully I'll be able to make it down to a game this year. I'd really like to make it back down to North Carolina.
Yeah, that was my next question. How often are you able to get back to a game?
I've been back since I've been there. I've been back like 4 or 5 times. I came back to our 25-year anniversary.
Right.
I think pretty much most of us did for the Peach Bowl. And I'd come back for maybe 2 other times before that for our Letterman's games. Met up with Dopey and Gardeal and Hunter Gallimore, and I think Robert Jones was there, a bunch of the guys. But hopefully this year we'll be able to do it too. The tough part about it is I coached at high school down here.
Yeah, it's kind of tough.
Friday night. It's tough to leave. You're not exactly right, Friday night. And the one time I did leave, I told our coach, I said, the head coach, I said, I am leaving for this game, the 25-year anniversary. He's like, what? I said, you can fire me if you want. I'm not going to fire you. I said, I'm not missing this.
I would not miss that for anything.
Nothing. I wouldn't miss it for anything. And he's like, okay, just make sure your guys know what they're doing. I'm like, they'll be fine. I coach the defensive line. Probably, I'm sure it's one of your questions.
Yeah, that was my next question. Was what you're up to now?
Okay, so I work here in the school district where I'm at, where the high school I coach at is Wall Lake. So I coach football. I'm the head track coach. I coach middle school. I'm the middle school head wrestling coach. And I actually officiate wrestling, too. So keep myself busy.
Yeah, I was actually reading an article about you officiating wrestling. I found that article about it. I'm going to ask you about that.
So
I'm sure that's pretty interesting there, being on the other side now.
It's a different perspective. Let me tell you, you learn to respect the referees a little bit more. Not a little more, a lot more.
Yeah.
What a different view it is when you're sitting on the sideline and or wherever you are, being a coach. I've learned to walk over to referees, shake their hand, and say thank you for doing what you're doing. And I realize how hard it is. And I realize that it actually helps in the games, going, hey, thanks for doing what you're doing. And I also referee and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, thank you, too. And next thing you know, we're getting a call. So I use it in both ways. So it works out good. But otherwise, I really love giving back to the kids, trying to get them not to make the mistakes I have to make. We have the team I coach at, we have some really, 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 really good talent come out of our school. Cody White, a receiver at Michigan State right now, he's been starting as a freshman since the freshman. He's a junior now. There's a kid who just signed with Boston College. Another offensive tackle just signed with Michigan State, enrolled early in January. Our offensive line averaged 300 pounds this year. I've been begging East Carolina. They will not come recruit up here.
Yeah.
I'm like, we have some guys that go to, another guy signed at Iowa State. Literally, we have probably 5 or 6 guys every year that go Division I big-time programs. And I've asked, when I came down to the Peach Bowl reunion,
right.
I talked to the coaches, and they were like, we really don't recruit up there. I'm like, why?
Why?
Please come get some of these guys. There's some good players. Yeah, why? Well, they didn't recruit, and they told me they just don't recruit in this area. It's too hard to compete with Michigan State, and Ohio State. I'm like, well, there's other guys that float through the cracks that are,
exactly.
maybe not going to go to Michigan. Kind of like in Chris Johnson. How did he get to East Carolina? How did Robert Jones get to East Carolina? Jeff Blake. They'll figure out their way, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean, these guys were, What about Jeff Blake's son? Robert Jones' son. Both. Dave Jones. There you go. What was he, a 2-star recruit out of high school?
Yeah, and look what he's doing now.
Playing for the Buffalo Bills.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
but
I wish they would, but...
Maybe they'll start listening to you now. Maybe there will be a change now. They'll start listening a little bit. So. Because I've heard the same thing from other players. They won't come out to, to the south, to the southwest and come recruit and stuff like that. So I've heard the same thing. So maybe it'll change now.
Yeah, we got a kid who's 6'10", that got offered by Michigan and Iowa State, and Iowa State and Michigan backed out. So he's got to go play at Central Michigan. I'm like, I wish East Carolina would come get him. He's a very raw-looking kid, 6'10". His name is Jacob Dean.
Okay.
He's very young, a young 6'10". Like if he got into a tough program, like he wouldn't last, I don't think, with Michigan. But I think if he got to East Carolina and got groomed by Shankweiler, I think he would do very well. He's the kind of guy that's going to slip through the cracks and do well one day.
Right.
So I wish they would, but it is what it is, I guess. We'll figure it out, huh?
Yeah, well, hopefully we're looking at a good year. But I'm not going to take up any more of your time. I just want to tell you how much I've enjoyed this. You want to talk about fantasy football, we can talk about that too. I know you.
I'm not big into fantasy football. I heard Dion talking about the money that the guy owed. That was kind of funny, Steve. I'll have to tell you.
Dion is a trip.
I appreciate you calling me. He is funny, and I would like. I'm just going to put on yo for Dion. He used to just say yo after everything he said. So I hope he listens to this and gets a smile on his face. So.
I'm going to message him and make sure he listens to this because every once in a while we'll message back and forth. He's a great guy though. From what I've talked to him, but I can't thank you enough for doing this and how much I've enjoyed this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I hope maybe we get to talk again. I'm going to try to get some ECU games this year. The way my work schedule is, I work most weekends, but I'm planning on getting out to the ECU games. Maybe I'll run into you there at one of those games. Maybe you're there.
If I'm coming down, Steve, you're coming down. I hate to tell you, because if I'm coming down, I'm texting you. I'm going to say, Steve, you're going to come down. I'm going to buy you a dinner.
Oh, man.
I appreciate you having
That's pretty awesome.
And I really do appreciate you having me on the show.
Hey, anytime. I could talk to you. I could talk to you all night about this stuff, but I know you're a busy man. Guys,
thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cunmulaj, for talking to us about the stuff. It's great. It's great to be able to talk to. It's kind of, I was telling my wife, some of these guys that I've talked to, that I've watched on TV and pulled for, and I'm actually talking to, and then after that, when I talk to some of them online or text them back and forth, I was actually a guy I interviewed, and I'm sitting there texting back and forth. We're watching. I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and we were talking back and forth about the game, and I just looked at my wife, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm actually sitting here talking to this guy about a Steelers game. This guy that I sat and watched on TV, and I was like, wow. I said, it's just kind of surreal, but I do appreciate it so much, and like I said,
thank you. I appreciate it.
We'll be in contact with you, and good luck to you. I know football, it'll be time for workout. I don't know if y'all already start like voluntary workouts or what.
Oh, we start doing workouts very early. I'll tell you that. It goes all year long.
Yeah,
it never stops.
It does. I know the feeling. But good luck to y'all this next season,
bud.
and we'll be keeping up with you. Thanks again, guys. It's Zaim Cunmulaj on the final score.
Steve. Take care.